No, we just have the.
Yeah, sure. It's all in the PPT. Just ask it to take a print out better. Okay.
Yes, it would be better for you to have a printer, no? It would be better for you to have a printer.
Namaste everyone. Welcome to this IKS Division's program announcements. And as is the tradition with the IKS Division's programs, we'll start today on logic.
Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Shanno Mitrasham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brahaspatihi Shanna Vishnu Rurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Namaste everyone. Slides, please. Oh, 1 second. So this is the program announcement for the IKS Division's 4 programs that we are going to announce. We are very happy to have Professor Sitaramji, Chairman of ASCTE, here to grace this program, and would like Sir to speak a few words, please.
So good afternoon to everyone. Very happy to be here in the initiatives of the Indian Knowledge System Division. And today, Indian Knowledge System Group is going to announce 4 initiatives: outcome-based research proposal program for 23-24, then IKS Center Teachers Training Proposal Program for 23-24, IKS Center Language Centers Proposal Program 23-24, which is the 4th one?
Research.
That is the research centers. IKS research centers proposal. So I think all of you may be waiting to hear what is the good news for you. So we will not keep you waiting further. So only thing is, I request you. So this Indian knowledge system, we need to integrate into the mainstream education. There's a rich wealth of information available, which needs to be concretized and put into accessible to everybody. So I think our Indian Knowledge System Group is trying to do that. It's a big task for a country like India. It's a huge task. They have anyway begun with a very good initiatives, and they are trying to create new centers, new proposal schemes wherein you can put in your efforts in that direction to make our dream come true. Okay? I think let's not wait further. So we will listen on the outcomes of these 4 competitions. And I request Dr. Kantimurthy to make these announcements in a format.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for those encouraging words. Can I have the PowerPoint slides, please? So as you know, the Indian knowledge systems, when we talk about Indian knowledge systems, essentially it consists of the rigorous and robust systems of knowledge creation and learning of Bharata in various Bharatiya languages, spanning several millennia, and which is covering all aspects of human existence and thought, and basically practice, which is expressed through unbroken oral, textual, folk, and art traditions. Next slide, please. The IKS division's vision is to rejuvenate and mainstream, as Professor Sitaramji was saying, Indian knowledge systems for the contemporary world, so that we bring the relevance of the Indian knowledge systems in the current societal context. So the objective of all activities that we do at the IKS division is to highlight the parampara, the continuous knowledge traditions of Bharat that existed and still exist and continue. And then the drishti, the unique perspective that makes these knowledge systems Indian. What makes these knowledge systems Indian? So that essentially that drishti. And also the laukika prayojana of the practical utility, contemporary social context, and how will it solve the emerging and current social problems in the world and of India. Essentially, it is to bring the IKS back into the mainstream, into the laboratories. Next slide, please. So this is essentially the conceptual framework of various IKS interventions. Today's programs are specifically focused around research scholars, researchers, and the institutional capacity building that is at the institution level. Next slide, please. So we are going to announce 4 initiatives today. The first one is the outcome-based research proposal program, which is called Bharatiya Jnana Samvardhan Yojana. This is the 3rd time that we are announcing, in fact, it's 4th time. Then Bharatiya Jnana Samposhana Kendra, which is an IKS center focusing on the primary research, primary interdisciplinary research in IKS and the contemporary knowledge systems. And then the 3rd one is Bharatiya Jnana Samposhana Bhasha Kendra, which is essentially about implementing the spirit of NEP to encourage the implementation of NEP in various Bharatiya Bhashas, mother tongue in mother tongues. So that is essentially, this is the 2nd iteration of that program. And then we have also brought out a new program this time. This is called Bharatiya Jnana Shikshaka Prashikshana Kendra, which is about course content curriculum creation and the teacher training. We'll get into each of these programs and along with the deadlines and what are the requirements and things like that. You can apply there and all these links that are given. Please visit the iksindia.org and you'll find detailed documentation about each project, how you can apply, when you can apply and things like that. We'll get into the details in just a few minutes. Next slide, please. So let's start off with the Bharatiya Jnana Samvardhana Yojana, which is a research proposal program for this year. We are announcing it for the 2023-2024. Next slide, please. So the goal is to make catalytic grants that will encourage original, serious, and deep scholarly research in interdisciplinary areas so that we can rejuvenate the IKS research in India. So we are announcing the program here on 23rd. The proposals will be due by 31st of July. Within a month, by end of August, we'll announce the awards, and within a month of that, we'll make the funding available for you. And after that, the progress report will be due in 6 months, and then midterm review after 1 year, and then final report after 2 years, that is 31st of August 2025. As with all IKS division announcements, the deadlines are final. The July 31st deadline is not going to be extended, so please do submit your proposal before that, and we will also commit ourselves to announce the results by end of August. Next slide, please. And who are eligible for this? Any faculty member in any government recognized educational institutions, whether that is private or public, government funded labs, and NGO, trusts or foundations are eligible to apply. And the additional requirement for NGOs, trusts and foundation is that they must be solely be working in the research and education related to Indian knowledge systems. Next slide, please. So typical award is about 5 to 10 lakhs. Maximum award is up to 20 lakhs, especially if they have involving any experimental research. And we basically provide support for manpower, supplies, equipment, and travel. So these are the 7 focus areas. You'll see that some of the areas have been dropped, some of the new areas are appearing here. This is based on the funding that we have provided in the previous rounds and also a lot of the feedback that we got from the stakeholders. So first area is mathematics and astronomy, sustainable agriculture food preservation, new universal sociological models based on epic perspective, IKS approaches for management of water resources, weather and rainfall predictions, IKS approaches to psychology, cognition, consciousness, evidence-based music and dance interventions and their relevance in contemporary world. Because this is an area that we brought out for the 2nd time this year. And we are very keen on this area because this is something that we have all known that Indian music or any music for that matter is soothing. But then, and it is also known in the practitioners, when you talk to any musician, especially of Carnatic and Hindustani music, they know that it actually suits the mind. There are different ragas that are to be sung at different times. But there is no scientific evidence to back that. So what we are trying to do with these programs is to provide that scientific evidence, clinical evidence, and especially targeting youth and children so that we can reduce anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts among youth. That is essentially the program focus there. And also, more than 70% of the antibiotics in the world are used in animals, for animals. So there is a strong need to reduce that antibiotics if you want to reduce the antimicrobial resistance across the different for antibiotics. So there are many approaches described in Pashu Ayurveda, and that is the focus of the 7th area, Pashu Ayurveda based approaches. National Dairy Development Board has run a 10-year program where they have been very, very successful in treating some of the diseases like mastitis, which is one of the very prevalent diseases. And so we are looking for many more such diseases that can be treated with Pashu Ayurveda approaches, which will be economical, which will not use antibiotics, and also help alleviate the rampant use of antibiotics for the animal cultures. So these are the 7 focus areas. Next slide, please. And maximum 2 proposals can be submitted by an PI or co-PI, but the focus must be on one thematic area per proposal. Research should be original and innovative. It should lead to some kind of a practical solution. It can be submitted in any Bharatiya Bhasha in the 8th schedule of or English. And it is also mandatory that the team must have at least one person, whether it could be PI, co-PI, or a collaborator, who can read the primary text without aid of any translations. Next slide, please. And what do we fund under this initiative? Essentially, research that is going to lead to solutions. And interdisciplinary research is something that we fund. And proposals that are high risk, that are unlikely to be funded by another agency is something that we are looking for. Proposals must have clear objectives and measurable outputs. Next slide, please. And what do we not fund? We don't fund routine proposals. We don't even look at pseudoscience proposals. Marginally, if they only contain IKS in a marginal way, we don't really talk about that or select them. Proposals without clear objectives, especially ones that will say will change the world, re-establish past glory, unrealistic objectives. That is not what we are looking for. We are looking for pushing that envelope of knowledge, even by a little delta. That essentially is what we are kind of looking at. And for this call, we are not really interested in literature search, translation tools, dictionaries, social studies, surveys, simply collecting data, manuscripts, digitization, and OCR and catalog. There are other programs of IKS division where we actually do that. This is primarily a research program. Next slide, please. So we'll move on to the next program, which is essentially Bharatiya Jnana Samposhna Kendram Gaveshanam, which is the IKS Centers for Research. Slide. So these are designed to encourage and fund the establishment of IKS centers across the country so that we can catalyze that original research, education, and dissemination. Again, the deadlines are pretty much the same. 23rd of June is when we are announcing. Proposals are due by 31st of July. By end of August, we are going to announce the results. Next slide, please. Who are eligible, pretty much the same eligibility criteria. Here, one difference is that an institute must submit only one IKS proposal. If we receive multiple IKS center proposals, research proposals from an institute, we'll send all of them back to the institute and ask them to select only one that will be considered for the peer review process. And total budget is about 40 lakhs. And this year onwards, we have, this round, we have a requirement for a matching grant, a 25% matching grant. I'll talk about that briefly in the next slide. So institutional commitment, what we have seen is the institutional commitment is very important for the success of a center because it needs backing from the institution in terms of space, staff, support staff, and things like that. So we are requiring a minimum of 25% matching grant, preferably in actual amount funding, but also it could also be met in through in-kind support as well. What those in-kind supports are, please do read the documents that we have posted on the IKS India website, and you'll find all the details about what kind of in-kind support can be included. And again, the higher the matching grant, better is it will show a higher commitment, is what we feel. So this is a new requirement that we have from the previous ones. Next slide, please. And again, we have talked to a lot of stakeholders. We keep listening and interacting with all of the stakeholders. And those two highlighted areas are the ones that we have added newly this time. One is the IKS approaches for Vruksha and Pashu Chikitsa. You see that Pashu Chikitsa already reflected in the research proposals. We also added the Vruksha Ayurveda, again for plant and animal disease protection, as another focus area of the IKS centers. And India was a leader in perfumery and cosmetics. And we want to bring those things back, and because that is essentially an area where there is a lot of possibility for innovation and also entrepreneurship in that area. So that is something that we are looking at as a potential area for the focus of an IKS center. Next slide, please. And IKS center must have 2 to 4 focus thematic areas, and again, research leading to practical products and solutions, involve students, younger faculty, so that we train the next generation of scholars, and outreach to general public is something that we encourage. Essentially, in IKS center research center stands on 3 pillars: interdisciplinary research, education mentoring, and then the outreach and dissemination, and with overall focus on 2 to 4 thematic areas. Next slide, please. Similar to what we have for the research proposals, we basically fund something that is interdisciplinary in its nature, and a center must have focus on all the three pillars. Only focusing on one or two of them is not adequate. So a center proposal must be equally paying attention to all three pillars of research, education, and outreach. And again, clear objectives and measurable outputs. Next slide, please. Again, pseudoscience is something that we don't touch at the IKS division. So similar things are there. What do we don't fund? Next slide, please. So that is essentially about the IKS centers of research. And then these are the IKS centers of type 2, which are essentially Bhasha Kendram, Bharatiya Jnana Samposhna Kendram, which are Bhasha Kendram. This is a collaborative program between the IKS division and the Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti to support the implementation of the NEP 2020. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the program is to establish the IKS centers that will help the IKS division to support the implementation of the NEP 2020 at national level. How do they do that? By creating authentic source materials, preparing course materials, delivering courses, disseminating the content created in the domain of IKS in various Bharatiya Bhashas. So the goal for this, unlike the previous center and the research proposal, is not to do primary research. The focus is completely on the secondary research and education or outreach programs. Next slide, please. And the same deadlines apply here. We are announcing it today. July 31st is when the proposals are due, and results will be announced by 31st of August. The center funding is about 5 to 12 lakhs over 2 years, and maximum is up to 15 lakhs. The principal investigator and the co-PIs will get an honorarium in this program, unlike the other programs, and the other two programs that we have discussed. And the honorarium amounts will be released after the completion of the deliverables of the project. Next slide, please. Who is eligible? Pretty much the same eligibility criteria. And one thing that we are requiring additionally is that the principal investigator must be fluent or an expert in at least 2 Bharatiya Bhashas, and it is mandatory requirement that the team must have at least 2 people, whether it is PI, co-PI, and collaborators, who can read the primary text without the aid from any translations. Next slide. And here also we have the same matching grant requirement to show the institutional commitment of 25% matching grant. And the total budget request should be basically whatever you are going to request in the IKS division plus the matching grant must not exceed 15 lakhs in 2 years. Next slide, please. What is it that we expect from these centers? They have to prepare at least 10 booklets of 100 to 150 pages on various topics in regional languages, from the regional languages, and they should be made available in Sanskrit and English for wider national level dissemination. And translate at least 1,000 pages of IKS related materials in Sanskrit or English or in any other bhasha to that regional language, so that we create that dynamics of that Bharatiya bhasha. And also delivery and curation of at least one course at the level of undergraduate level of. And then whatever the materials are going to be created, IKS division will retain the copyright for all of these materials, because we want to make sure that it goes to the maximum number of people without any problems. But the copyright will remain with the authors. The rights for dissemination will lie with the IKS division. Next slide, please. And we have in the previous round established out of the 22 languages, the ones that we have highlighted, those centers are already established in 7 languages right now. So we'll be looking specifically for other languages to establish the IKS centers, Bharatiya Bhasha Kendras. Next slide, please. And then the final program on Bharatiya Jnana Shikshana Prashikshana Kendra. This is a new initiative of the IKS division, IKS centers for Shikshaka Prashikshana. That means teacher training. And especially you must have heard, next slide, please. The idea is to help in preparation of course materials and disseminate the content with a special focus on the STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics disciplines. This is very relevant because very recently both AICTE and the UGC have come up with UGC has come up with guidelines, and AICTE has already been implementing the introduction of IKS courses at the undergraduate level, and UGC has also come up with the guidelines for UG and PG level. So to facilitate that, we need a lot of content that is discipline specific. So this is the focus of these centers. The deadlines are pretty much the same. Next slide, please. So again, this is open to anybody. All the faculty members in any government recognized institutions, private trusts, all those things. In the previous ones, we had a limitation that A PI who is already having an IKS grant cannot apply to an IKS Center for Research, IKS Research Proposal Program, or the IKS Teaching Center. But here, they can apply for this, even if they already have an existing program. So similarly here, institute can submit only one proposal, otherwise we'll send it back to you so that we can basically send us one proposal from an institute. And so explicitly, we want to encourage our PIs and co-PIs from the previous rounds to think of applying for this type of a center, because you're already an expert, and then think of developing courses in your specialized areas. So typically the total funding will be determined based on the number of courses that a center will be developing. And it is essentially 8.5 lakhs into number of courses plus 1 lakh. So next slide, please. The minimum, so what kind of courses are we talking about? So just to orient you to what is it that we are looking at, we have this list here. So for example, a course on Nyaya Shastra for computer science students in their second year of engineering is a suitable IKS center course that a center like this can develop. But if they are trying to develop the Nyaya Shastra course for students who are already doing their Nyaya Shastra, that is not what we are looking for. Similarly, if we talk about a course on mathematics or computer logic for students in Nyaya Shastra in a Sanskrit university, that is something that we are looking for. But if you're simply designing a computer logic course for computer science students in an engineering discipline, that is not really what the center should be doing. Similarly, talking about Tantra Yukti for science and engineering, because Tantra Yukti talks about 36 methods of generating different hypotheses. That is not taught to regular science and engineering students. So that is a course that would be appropriate for that. But then if this is already taught to Ayurveda students in a traditional way. So developing a course around that is not something of a priority. So similarly, Vedanga Jyotisha for mathematics and astronomy students versus Jyotisha students. Talking about Kerala School of Mathematics for BA or MA students of mathematics is something that is of interest to us. Simply developing a course on topology for mathematics students is not of interest. So course on foundational design aspects of buildings, as discussed in various Vastu Shastra texts for civil engineering students, is of interest to us. Simply a course on foundation engineering for civil engineering students, which is already being done, is not of interest to us. Similarly, course on Vriksha Ayurveda for agriculture science students would be of interest, because that is currently not taught. That is integrating and mainstreaming the IKS into the contemporary knowledge systems, as Professor Ramji was mentioning. Simply talking about genetic engineering for agriculture science students is not of interest to us. So look at these examples and then think about what kind of courses can you develop. Next slide, please. So how would this go about? What is it that we are talking about when we talk about course curriculum development? The idea is it will happen in 3 main steps and a 4th small step. The first one is we expect the centers to conduct a preparatory workshop where they will invite all the experts from the country. Then sit down and brainstorm on what the content should be, course syllabus should be, what are the reference texts, who are the experts in that field. And after that workshop, they will then formulate the syllabus, and then actually they will deliver a 30 to 40 hour lectures, 40 to 45 to 50 minutes per lecture, of course, preferably in a regular classroom or in a recording studio setting that we all have. And then the lecture notes for all those lectures should be prepared, or transcription is also acceptable, 5 to 10 pages per lecture, and also possible questions for student assignments. Whether that could be multiple choice, short answer type questions, fill in the blanks, all kinds of things. We leave it up to you. And so that is essentially the curated content for each course. Now after we have this course content, this needs to be transferred to the faculty. So therefore, in the 3rd step, you need to conduct a faculty training workshop where at least 50 faculty members must be trained without charging any fees, because we are going to provide support for that in a physical mode. And they must be conducted as per the UGC and AICTE norms. No deviations will be accepted there. And once these courses are faculty training is conducted, we will provide funding support for that. But any additional things that you want to conduct, you can charge a fee, and then you can do that at a no cost, no loss basis. And the 4th one, the end of it, we request you to submit all the materials to the IKS division, so that along with the final report or the progress report as appropriate, so that we can put it up for dissemination, wider dissemination. This is essentially the plan for one course. We would like a center to repeat this for 2 to 4 courses during the duration. Next slide, please. So the center is expected to deliver 2 to 4 courses in 18 months. And what are the expected deliverables? Just as we discussed, 30 to 40 videos of maximum 30-minute length, and lecture notes and assignments. and we will retain the right to use all the materials for wider dissemination. The contributing authors will maintain the authorship of all the documents. Next slide, please. So that essentially is the new program on teacher training centers. And then the review process, as you know, next slide, please. So there will be a 3-phase review for all the processes. We'll do a shortlisting where we'll look at the interdisciplinarity of the proposals and then followed by deep review. That will be done by one panel, and the second panel will sit together for a panel presentation where the PIs will be invited for the 3rd phase. And after that, we'll basically rank the proposals by merit and geographical distribution, and then we'll try to select them for funding. So that is essentially the overview of the review process. And along with this, we also recognize that writing interdisciplinary proposals is a challenge. So we'll be conducting at least 6 proposal writing workshops between now and 23rd of July. So there will be things that will be coming to a place near you. So you can walk in with an idea and then come out with a proposal after that workshop. That is what we kind of try to promise you. So there are many exciting things going on in the IKS division. I hope you all engage with us. So next slide, please. With that, thank you so much for your patient listening. We are all available always for questions. Next slide, please. Thank you so much again. We'll see you again in another 2 months on August 30th. And we look forward for your participation for submission of many proposals to all these initiatives. Namaste. And we'll end with a Mangala Charana.
Any questions?
Oh, yeah, questions. Let's see if there are questions.
Would you like to add anything?
Let's see the questions.
You can maybe ask them if they have any questions.
If there are any questions, you can please feel free to type in that YouTube comments box, chat box, please. We are watching that. So it seems there are no questions, so which is good. But again, we are open to receiving your questions anytime. So please do feel free to contact us. Thank you so much for having here, and we'll end with it.
Sahanavavatu, Sahano Bhunattu, Sahaviryankaravavahi, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Namaste.